Order members, the sitting is resumed, and it's now time for questions to the Minister of Education. Can I advise members that question number 7 and 9 have been withdrawn, and I call Pat Cackney to ask the first question.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and thanks, Minister, for appearing here today, and welcome to your new post. Question number 1.
Mr Deputy Speaker, as this is my first appearance in the Chamber since my appointment, I hope you'll indulge me as I wish to give recognition to my predecessor, Peter Weir, and to thank him for the work he did during what was a very difficult year. In response to the question, I'm committed to moving forward with work on the Executive Childcare Strategy as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, work on it has had to be paused over the past year or so as my officials focus their efforts on providing financial support for the childcare sector throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been essential to ensure the survival of many childcare providers and underpin economic recovery. From April 2020 to March 21, approximately £30.5 million was paid to the childcare sector through 6 support schemes. This is a very significant investment requiring a lot of detailed work. On the 18th of June, I announced 2 further support schemes for the childcare sector from the 1st of April 21. Despite the delivery of these schemes continuing to require significant staff time, work has recommenced on the development of the childcare strategy, and while we're not starting from scratch, previous work done on the strategy will need to be updated and refined, taking on board lessons learned from the past year. The work will include producing an up-to-date assessment of the state of the sector following the pandemic, re-engaging with key stakeholders on the objectives, priorities and key deliverables, feasibility testing, costing and prioritising options, and a public consultation. It will also require, in due course, executive agreement on a broad range of significant policy decisions, including the overall budget. I'm hopeful that a strategic insight programme to engage with key stakeholders to help inform the development of the strategy will take place in the autumn, and we're planning for this to run from October to December, subject to work on pandemic support schemes having come to an end by this stage. I can assure you of my commitment to moving this work forward. The focus is on the production of a costed strategy which enables meaningful funding decisions to be taken.
I call Pat Cackney for supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your commitment. But, Minister, I outlined what plans you were going to have in order to lower childcare costs, given that Northern Ireland has the 2nd highest expensive childcare in Europe.
I suppose at this stage it's quite difficult to ascertain how the strategy is going to pan out and what that is actually going to look like. Obviously, we are committed to producing a strategy, and I'm very mindful of the pressures that this places on families who are trying to work and at the same time obviously have their children looked after. I suppose there are a number of options which have been looked at, particularly around the other UK jurisdictions. But I do understand that speaking to sectoral representatives, they've indicated that really what they're looking for in Northern Ireland is something which is very bespoke to Northern Ireland and tailored for it, rather than a replication of current offers elsewhere. But I am mindful of the issues that the member has raised.
I now call Chris Little.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm sure can I welcome the Education Minister to her post, and say that I'm sure she will agree that the childcare strategy is long overdue. Can I welcome the specific date for the Childcare Strategy Insight Lab in partnership with the All-Party Group on childcare, and seek an update on delivery of the also long overdue flexible school start age legislation?
Okay, and I thank the member for his question. I suppose really to say from the outset that I am supportive of the campaign to have flexible school starting age in exceptional circumstances, and I was disappointed that the previous proposals which were consulted on during 2014-15 by former Minister John O'Dowd did not progress at that particular time. In February, my predecessor announced his intention to develop proposals with specific reference really to premature babies and whose birthday were late in the school year. Officials are working on policy proposals, and I hope to be in a position to go out for a consultation hopefully reasonably soon. I'm mindful that we are heading towards the end of the mandate and progression may be hindered by factors which are outside of my control. So I don't want to raise expectations, but I am committed to moving this particular policy forward.
I call Christopher Stalford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Firstly, could I welcome the Minister to her place and wish her all the very best in her new role. The Minister will be aware that in other UK regions, 30 hours of childcare is an offer that is available. Is the Minister in a position today to tell us whether or not a similar offer will be included in the Northern Ireland childcare strategy?
I thank the member for his question, and we will consider this as part of the engagement process which is planned over the coming months. My department has previously and continues to regularly engage with colleagues in other UK jurisdictions about their childcare offers for 3 to 4-year-olds and to learn what has worked well and the challenges obviously in the design and implementation of those offers. In line with the commitments made in New Decade, New Approach, the Department of Education will move forward with the work on the Executive Childcare Strategy, but this will also include the extended, affordable, responsive and high-quality early education and care provision for families with children aged 3 to 4, and this will incorporate the current established and successful preschool education programme. And as I indicated to Mr Catney, sectoral representatives have asked for something which is tailored for Northern Ireland rather than a replication of what's happening elsewhere, and hence why our strategy will be slightly different, and it will incorporate much wider aspirations and actions for childcare services.
I now call George Robinson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Could I congratulate the Minister on her elevation to her new post? Question 2.
Thank the member for his question. The mental health and well-being of children and young people continues to be a high priority for my department. The recently published Framework for Children and Young People's Emotional Health and Well-being in Education and the accompanying implementation plan will enhance the support provided for pupils with a focus on promotion, prevention and early intervention through an integrated approach between education and health. This includes a primary school counselling pilot, along with new school nursing services, multidisciplinary primary school support, enhanced education authority support and a new CAMS emotional wellbeing in schools service. Work is progressing to implement the programmes, some of which have already commenced. And I can confirm that an additional £5 million has been made available for another COVID Wellbeing Fund for 2021-22, which will provide dedicated funding to address wellbeing pressures arising as a result of the pandemic. Reflecting on the approach taken last year, the funding will be distributed directly to all schools, that's nursery, primary, post-primary and special schools, as well as EODIS and youth settings, giving them flexibility in how they support the mental health and well-being of children and young people and the staff working with them.
I call George Robinson for supplementary.
Minister for her answer. The Minister has indicated that an additional £5 million has been made available for another COVID Wellbeing Fund for 2021-22. I know the last round of this was widely welcomed and schools have been quite creative in how they use the money. Can the Minister outline how the new fund will be allocated and what conditions there are on how the money is to be spent?
Thank the member for his question. A single one-off allocation will be made to all school settings based on their enrolment figures. In effect, this will mean schools with an enrolment of 1 to 499 will receive a one-off payment of £3,250 per school. Enrolment of 500 to 999 will receive £7,300 per school. Enrolment of 1,000 to 1,499 will receive £10,000 per school, and enrolment of in excess of 1,500 will receive £13,000 per school, and youth services will receive £1,250 per youth service unit. This is considered to be the more equitable way of distributing the funding. The allocation is still per setting rather than per child, which reflects the fact that not all children and young people will require additional support. However, the settings as a whole can ensure that they are well equipped to meet the needs of those that do need additional support and can target them appropriately. With regards to restrictions, each school will have the autonomy to manage the funding based on their identified needs, but will be expected to use it for activities that primarily support health and well-being of children and young people and staff. The EEA will continue then to provide supporting guidance, and further advice will be available where needed.
I call Justin McNulty.
And thank the Minister for her answers thus far and wish her well in her new post. Unfortunately, we can't let you bail in gently because the education of our young people and children is too important. Minister, can you tell me if you have engaged with the Health Minister in terms of creating initiatives to help the mental health of children in schools, working with charities and with sporting organisations and with other organisations to help build resilience in our young people?
And I thank the member for his question, and I appreciate the work that he does, particularly with young people in the realm of sport. I do welcome the announcement by the Health Minister today in relation to a mental health strategy. I know that my predecessor worked with the Department of Health and the Minister in relation to the development of the emotional health and wellbeing framework, which has been real value, I think, particularly at this time, coming through and out of, hopefully, the COVID pandemic. While I haven't personally met them at this stage, as you will understand, I'm still in listening mode and meeting mode, so I hope to do that in the coming weeks.
I call Mike Nesbitt.
Speaker, thank you. In terms of mental health in schools, Minister, and I do welcome you and wish you well in your post, how would you assess the toolkits that are being produced from the likes of Pure Mental and Include Youth, representing a kind of bottom-up approach to the issue?
And I welcome the question by the member, and I know that those organisations are very focused on the well-being of young people, and I've worked particularly with Include Youth for a number of years with wearing other hats, and I look forward actually to meeting with them to discuss the projects that they are undertaking, because while there will be projects which will be very much sort of school-based, other projects which are youth service based and wider, particularly within the community, are of great tools and of particular asset to the work that we're trying to do here.
I call Nicola Brogan.
And can I welcome the Minister to a new position as well and wish her the best of luck in it. The previous Education Minister had announced plans to pilot counselling services within primary schools. Given the huge challenges experienced by our very young children and young people throughout the pandemic and our need to support them, can I ask the Minister for an update on this pilot project, please?
Thank the member for her question, and I acknowledge the difficulties of the last year. And subject to the necessary approvals, I do hope to be launching a pilot of counselling at primary school level in the new academic year as one of a range of supports to be delivered through the implementation of the Emotional Health and Wellbeing in Education framework. This will involve all primary school pupils, including special schools with a cohort of primary school pupils. £5 million has been allocated to support the delivery of the project. My officials are working with the EA in order to progress this, and it includes the development of plans for an evaluation of the impacts and the benefits of the support for primary school children.
Moving on, I call Maurice Bradley.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Could I welcome the Minister to her new post as well and ask question 3?
The Education Authority is currently working in partnership with representatives of 3 schools, Coleraine College, Dunluce School and North Coast Integrated College, on a joint proposal for non-selective post-primary provision in the Causeway area. A steering group, the Causeway Project Board, has been established, which includes representation from the Northern Ireland Council for Integrated Education, the Controlled Schools Council, Support Council and the Ulster University. The EA has advised that a consultation document has been prepared and considered by the Board of Governors of the 3 schools. The EA's Strategic Planning and Policy Committee considered the proposal and sought some points of clarification. The consultation document was considered at the EEA's board meeting on the 24th of June 2021, and approval was given to commence pre-publication consultation on the 13th of September 2021, which will run until the 15th of November. My department only becomes formally engaged in the process when the development proposals have been published.
Call Maurice Bradley for supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Can I apologise to the Minister? I forgot to declare an interest as a member of the Board of Governors for Coleraine Integrated College. Minister, there is a genuine concern that if the amalgamation is approved, that the new school will operate over 2 sites. This will create issues for staffing, problems for timetabling and extra costs. Can I ask the Minister if capital funding will be made available for a new school, and if any lessons have been learned by the Department from their experiences through other amalgamations?
Thank the member for his question. A major capital investment would not be announced as part of the development proposal approval process. This would only follow if the new school was successful in a future major capital call. Whilst a new school formed following any amalgamation would be well placed to receive funding for a new build in a future major capital call, there can be no guarantees that this would be the case. In the event that funding is subsequently approved, there would also be no guarantee regarding the site that would be selected for the investment. This is an issue that would be resolved following an analysis of options available in the business case prepared to seek approval for the major capital investment. Any decision to amalgamate the schools must be taken independently of the future of the school. With regards to lessons learned, experience has shown that school amalgamations are complex and require thorough and timely planning. Each amalgamation has its own set of unique circumstances, and my officials will work with individual schools to assist with the implementation. There is a circular, as there is for most things, on the website for your perusal.
And I call Stuart Dixon.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and welcome, Minister, to your post today. Question number 4.
My Department's capital programme aims to ensure that school premises are planned, delivered and improved to support the delivery of desired education outcomes and to provide a safe and secure environment for all users. I understand that in the East Antrim constituency over the last 3 financial years, approximately £6.3 million has been invested in minor work schemes to improve existing assets. Under my department's major capital works programme, which was initiated in 2012, 5 schools have been announced to proceed in planning for a major capital investment. 2 of these projects, Weedburn Primary School and Corran Integrated Primary School, have been completed with an investment in the region of £8.7 million. A further 3 schools are progressing through various stages of RIBA stages: Abbey Community College, St Killian's College and Island Magee Primary School. Over £5 million was invested in 2 schools under the first SEP, Acorn Integrated Primary School and Belfast High School. A further 4 schools have been announced to advance in design under the second call, with a total estimated investment of £16 million. These projects are at an early stage of planning and design, and these schools are Rodensfield Special School, Thornfield House Special School, Carrickfergus Grammar School and Green Island Primary School. Ulidia Integrated College was announced as a major capital project under the Fresh Start programme in March 16. The business case was approved in December 18 for a new build on the existing site. This £25 million investment will provide up-to-date accommodation and sports facilities for 700 pupils. While significant investment in capital in the East Antrim constituency is underway, I do acknowledge that there are a large number of schools requiring maintenance in the constituency, which is funded from the resource budget. The budget for schools maintenance is just one of the budgetary pressures currently faced. My department allocated £20.5 million to the Education Authority for maintenance for 21-22. An estimated spend of £800,000 will be committed this year to planned maintenance and statutory remedial projects in schools in East Antrim.
I call Stuart Dixon for supplementary.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. And I do appreciate the large sums of money which your department have put into improving schools in East Antrim, particularly those which you've mentioned. But could I today, Minister, raise with you 2 schools which seem to either have been overlooked or are currently in a very difficult situation with regards to, first of all, Carrickfergus Academy, which was a creation of the former Downshire and Carrickfergus College schools, and was sold to the boards of governors and to parents and the community as a new build school, yet that seems to be a long way away. Likewise, Larne High School in the town of Larne is in a perilous state of repair. It seems to be the school that time forgot, not in terms of the education that's being delivered in the building by the principal and staff, but can I ask, Minister, would you accompany me on a visit to both of those schools?
Thank the member for his question, and obviously it's very similar to the question which was asked by my colleague in relation to sort of promises or the anticipation of a new build when an amalgamation takes place. I'm It is my intention to make a major capital works call before the end of the current financial year, so that may assist with that particular project. But I am content and more than happy to accept his invitation to visit both schools.
I call Gordon Lyons.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and can I also congratulate the Minister on her appointment and wish her well in her new role. Can I also echo the comments that have already been made by Mr Dixon, especially in relation to Larne High School, which is in need of an urgent upgrade. I'm pleased to hear what the Minister has said about the Capital Works programme. Can she give any more detail as when that would be likely to be in place? And could I also raise with her the issue of Green Island Primary School, which is in similar state of repair?
Okay, I thank the member for his question, and I'm assuming this is in relation to Larne High School that he's looking for information on. So in October 2017 there was a call for minor works applications for 2 applications which were made for the school for upgrading boiler flues and upgraded roofing, and those 2 applications didn't rank high enough. Since 2019, 4 business cases have been approved for capital minor works. There was accommodation works for special educational needs, which were completed in 2020, DDA specific accommodation completed in 2019, the refurbishment of a 2G synthetic pitch due to complete RIBA stage 5 in July this year, and strategic investment in school meals accommodation project, which is due to complete stage 5 in September. I understand the EA maintenance service will be scoping the changing rooms and gym hall for consideration for delivery in either financial year 21 or 22 or subsequent years, subject to the capital budget availability. Larne High School was not put forward by the EA for consideration on the most recent major works call, which closed on the 31st of October, nor was an application made on behalf of the school submitted on the latest school enhancement programme call. With regards to Green Island Primary School, I don't have any information with me in relation to that, but I'm happy to accompany the member on a visit if he so wishes.
I call Pat Sheehan.
Can I also wish the member well in her new role as Education Minister? The Minister will be aware that the schools estate right across the north is crying out for investment. Many schools are operating in outdated, inappropriate and so-called temporary accommodation for 20 years now. So could she outline her investment plans for the school estate that our young people need and deserve?
Can remind the member that this was a constituency question specific to East Antrim. I'll ask the Minister if she wishes to respond. She may or may not wish to respond.
I'm content to respond, but I do agree with the member when he does say that the schools estate is crying out for investment, and there are far too many schools in outdated accommodation. And in the last 2 weeks I've visited quite a number of schools, really from one extreme to the other, where we have exemplary accommodation and those where school leaders are in despair. And it does concern me that there have been projects which have been prioritised for in excess of 10 years and we still haven't seen delivery on those. And it does concern me that there is a significant backlog in minor works. We've got 6,000 applications in the last call and only around 1,300 of those have actually been progressed. And I know that the reason for that is to do with sort of emergency applications as well. So I am concerned, and I agree with what the member has said. As I've said in a previous response, I do plan to put out further calls, but I am also meeting with my officials to see where we can be better prepared, where we do have shovel-ready projects when capital does become available.
I call Jim Allister and remind him it's a constituency question.
Thank you. Can I suggest to the Minister it's a false economy in operation not to maintain our schools? By way of example, I cite Muirfields Primary School, on which I declare the interest as Chair of the Board of Governors. A new school provided a dozen years ago, yet because of a failure to address plaster failings, because of failure to ever repaint it, it now is riddled with cracks, growing moss, and is going to take a lot of money to repair at some time in the future. Why are we not keeping the stock that we have at a level so that we protect against excessive expenditure in the future?
I thank the member for his question. I don't disagree with what he has said and the commentary that he has made. I understand that probably some of what he has spoken of is resource where there is pressures, but I'm happy to go back to officials to see what the current status is with regards to Moorfield Primary School and come back to the member.
I call Linda Dillon.
Question 5.
Before a new call for major capital works is announced, the protocol for the selection of major capital works will first be reviewed and, if necessary, updated based on learning from the latest announcement and any new policy developments. This will be published in advance of the call to allow schools, in conjunction with their managing authorities and sectoral bodies, to consider their options and eligibility. Once nominations are received from managing authorities, sectoral bodies and voluntary grammar schools, each application is assessed under the agreed protocol developed for each call. A list of qualifying schools ranked in order of scoring from the protocol is drawn up, and I will decide on the number of projects to be advanced based on the available budget. The protocol used for the most recent major capital works call is available to view on the department's website.
I call Linda Dillon for supplementary.
Can the Minister give us an update on if there are any plans for a new school on a new site for St Joseph's Primary School in Galway? I had the previous Minister out there. The site that they are currently on is not only unsafe, but is not suitable, not fit for purpose. The numbers of children going there are growing, and the school is not able to accommodate the numbers of children going, so we really, really need a new build in St Joseph's in Galway.
I thank the member for her question, and it will not surprise her to know that I'm not aware of the specific plans for St Joseph's, but what I will do is commit to writing to the member with an update, and if the member feels it would be useful for me to visit, I'd be happy to agree to any request to do so.
I call Harry Harvey.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for her answers thus far and wish her well in her position. The Minister will be familiar with the need for a long overdue new build for Down High School and the various challenges there have been to make this a reality. Could the Minister please provide an update on this highly anticipated project? Thank you.
I thank the member for his question. The major works project at Down High School is now nearing the end of the design phase. Progress has been delayed due to the need for a significant archaeological excavation on the proposed site. The scope of excavation works required has now been agreed and work is underway. It's anticipated that these excavation works will be completed in the first half of 2022, allowing the project to proceed to tender in the financial year 22-23, subject to detailed analysis of the findings from the dig. And I understand the commentary from the member where he says that it has been anticipated for a long time, and certainly young people from our constituency who go to Down High have been calling out for this for quite some time, so it will be good to see this project move forward.
I call Rachel Woods.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Minister to her position. With regard to the Major Capital Works programme, the Minister will be aware that there are a number of climate commitments that we now have to meet, so I'm wondering if she would consider writing in a carbon zero sort of requirement to any future major capital works within the school estate.
And I thank the member for her question, and certainly I'll take that on board and speak to officials in relation to that and how that can be progressed.
Moving on, I call Colin Gilnew.
Question number 6, please.
Any significant change required to a primary school, including an increase in its approved enrolment number, currently requires the publication of a development proposal. The DP process is a statutory process, and the Department's Guidance Circular 2017-09, which is available on the Department's website, follows a comprehensive overview of the process to be followed. My department also has the power to grant additional places to individual schools by way of a temporary variation to a school's approved admissions and enrolment numbers. TVs are granted in areas where a demographic pressure exists and is for 1 year only. The Department is currently considering a process to approve increases to a grant-aided school's approved numbers which may not require a DP. The process is designed to normalise admissions and enrolment numbers where there is evidence demonstrating an historic pattern of enrolment in excess of a school's approved number.
And unfortunately that is the end of our period of time for listed questions, and we now move on to topical questions. Can I advise members that questions number 3 and 10 have been withdrawn? I call Pat Sheehan.
The Minister will be aware that the Independent Schools Counselling Service provides important support for our post-primary schools, but they have been coming under increasing strain as a result of the pandemic. And I'm aware that in my own constituency in West Belfast, having spoken to school leaders, there are particular problems there. And I wonder, is the Minister aware of any particular issues in West Belfast, and does she intend any further supports or interventions to ensure that the Independent Schools Counselling Service is supported?
I thank the member for his question, and certainly the Independent Counselling Schools Service does provide an essential support service to our young people. And I understand that there has been an increase in the number of referrals since young people returned to on-site learning. But while the demand for counselling has increased, I think overall the service hasn't been overwhelmed. That said, I understand from speaking to the member outside of this chamber that he does have a particular concern in relation to West Belfast, and has been involved in multi-agency discussions in relation to attempting to address this issue. I understand that as of yesterday, there were 10 young people who were awaiting counselling service in West Belfast, and I understand that that is progressing. Although those are only the young people who have identified themselves as having need, that doesn't mean that there aren't many others who require service. And certainly, I will speak to officials to ascertain the particular pressures that there are and to see if there's anything additional that we need to do.
Thank
the Minister for her answer. And the emotional health and wellbeing framework was a welcome intervention in terms of mental health policy. I have some concerns in that it was mainly developed prior to the pandemic, and I wonder if the Minister would give a commitment to review the framework and ensure that it is resilient, given the many challenges that young people are facing as a result of the pandemic.
Okay, and I thank the member for his question. Obviously, the emotional health and wellbeing of our young people, along with our staff, is a priority and should be a priority for my department. And there have been very significant challenges for school staff as they support children and young people as they come through the pandemic. While I understand the point that the member is making in relation to the terms of the development of the policy, I think he might recognise that the proposals and the implementation of those allows adaptability and flexibility, perhaps that we haven't seen before in some of the projects that have been put forward by the department. He will be aware that this has been supported by COVID wellbeing support finances. There are a number of projects which have come online, which I understand have been very successful to date, including Text to Nurse, EA Youth Service, the REACH programme, and also a wellbeing hub. And there are a number of other projects which are due to come online as well with regards to a new CAMS, emotional wellbeing team in school services. So there are a number of projects there which hopefully will be able to address some of those problems, but content to have a look to see if there's anything further that needs to be done.
And I call George Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Is the Minister willing to commit that her department will, as soon as possible, implement the recent report, and I quote, "a fair start" on educational underachievement in Northern Ireland, given that reports in the past have been produced on this area but never achieved?
I thank the member for his question, and obviously I'd like to pay tribute to my predecessor again in relation to driving forward this work, but also to Dr Noel Purdy and the expert panel for their commitment to it. I am really keen to see this progress quickly because it is an important programme of work. There are 47 actions which are spread across at least 6 years. My focus at the moment is what we can achieve in the short term, and £4 million has already been set aside in this year's budget in order to progress this work. Officials will be working with policy leads within the Department of Education alongside government departments and arm's length bodies to progress the expert panel's action plans. Governance structures are also being established to oversee implementation of the action plan, and as agreed by the Executive, the First Minister and Deputy First Minister have undertaken to oversee the delivery of the plan. But this will require a considerable budget commitment, and it is an executive commitment and cross-cutting, and I hope that the request to fund this will be honoured.
I call George Robinson for supplementary.
Again, thank the Minister for her answer. Will the Minister agree to visit Drumran Primary School in my constituency with Councillor Scott and myself to see firsthand how lack of some facilities, i.e. additional classroom because of rising numbers, is impacting on the issues this report addresses?
Thank the member for his question, and my diary secretary is going to love me at the end of this session, but I'll be more than happy to visit with Mr Robinson and Councillor Scott.
Could we have Colin McGrath onto our screens? And I call Colin McGrath.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I join other members in welcoming the Minister to her position as the Minister for Education and Youth Services and wish her well in her post. Last week, the Education Committee received an update on the budget and in-year monitoring, and in that update, £12 million of cuts was envisaged for a review of temporary and substitute teachers. Can the Minister outline how this was achieved?
And I thank the member for his question, and I think he may be referring to the Workforce Review Project, which is part of the April 2020 agreement to end the long-running teachers' industrial dispute. And out of that, I understand that there were a number of work streams which were agreed in order to look at the likes of improving attendance and so on. I don't believe that it's anticipated that this £12 million will be realised within the next financial year. I think this is something which will take some time, but I'm happy to come back with more detail to the member with regards to what was said at the committee and if there's anything further that needs to be added.
I call Colin McGrath for supplementary.
Thank you very much to the Minister for that response, and I suppose maybe just could I get a commitment from the Minister that we won't see any cuts to temporary or substitute teachers, and I suppose some recognition of the valuable contribution that they do make to the overall staffing complement within our schools.
And thank the member for his question, and certainly as someone who was a substitute teacher at the time, I absolutely agree in that they do add value to the workforce. Again, if the member is content, I think it obviously forms part of the previous question with regards to how this is going to be undertaken, and I prefer to come back with the detail to the member rather than just saying something for the sake of something.
I now call Liz Kimmins.
And I welcome the Minister to her new post and wish her well as well. Minister, as we enter the summer holidays and given the year that our children and young people have just come through, it's more important now than ever that we have proper investment in place for summer schemes, youth work and other diversionary activities to meet their social, emotional and physical needs, which have been badly impacted over the last 15 months. And I'm aware of the Summer Scheme Programme Fund that has been established by your department, which will provide some support to schools to run various projects. But can I ask the Minister for an update on the total level of investment and plans to support diversionary projects and related schemes over the coming months?
I thank the member for her question. With regards to the schools summer scheme project, 453 schools have been able to avail of this project this year, and I understand that it's £4.6 million has been committed to it, and we'll have actually considerable outreach to young people. I understand that somewhere in the region of 40,000 children will be able to access summer schemes through schools, which is quite a significant uplift from last year when it was taken up by a very small number of schools, but then the circumstances were slightly different with regards to COVID. With regards to the EA Youth Services, again, there were £5 million was allocated to that, and I think in over 180 schemes have been able to be allocated financial support. You'll also be aware that the EA also run the TBUC camps, and while I don't have the information with regards to that, that's obviously an additional assistance to doing what the member has suggested that they should do.
I call Liz Kimmins.
Minister for answering. I mean, it is very good to hear and very welcome that there is such a massive reach. It is so important this year. Minister, then, in the event of any underspend or any unspent resources from the programme fund, will you consider making it available for local community groups or sporting organisations who may be able to apply for on the basis that they can run the diversionary activities required over the summer months?
I thank the member for her question, and I'd like to think that there won't be an underspend, that all money will be able to be drawn down, although there is a risk associated with some of the youth summer programme, because I think somewhere in the region of 40% of those schemes actually require an overnight stay, and so we'll anticipate what the executive agree on Thursday with regards to that. I would be hopeful that that doesn't happen, although I understand that in the event that a scheme doesn't go ahead, that there are a number of projects in reserve who should be able to use that money. I would need to get further information as to whether or not that can then be moved into another project, which is outside of the scope of what's been agreed. That may take some time and may actually not be of assistance.
I call Rachel Woods.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Minister will be aware that many children and young people face the reality of hunger over the summer months, and the Minister's predecessor introduced free school meals payments for the summer and holiday months until 2022. So can I ask the Minister if she would support free school meals continuing over the holiday periods indefinitely, and what other measures her department are looking at to tackle holiday hunger for this year?
I thank the member for her question, and absolutely understand this has been very much a long running discussion even prior to COVID, although COVID I suppose put very much a focus on the issue in relation to hunger and particularly around the holiday period. A payment scheme has been approved for this next period of time. That's been signed off quite recently. This will then be again will be £13.50 per child per week, and will be made available to all families entitled to free school meals on the 30th of June for 9 weeks. And there was a cost of around £12 million for that. Obviously, this is an issue which is doesn't just necessarily fall within education. This is something which is very much across departmental issue, and it would be something that I would be keen to take up with Minister Hargey from the Department of Communities.
I call Rachel Woods for supplementary.
Thank the Minister for her answer. It's on the same theme of food in school. The Minister will know how important it is for children to have access to enough balanced, nutritious meals for growth, health and well-being, as well as their brain development and their concentration. So can I ask the Minister how her department ensures how meals served within schools are assessed for their nutritional value?
Thank the member for her question, and I would have to come back to her with the detail around that, but if she's content with that. Thanks.
I call Mark Durgan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for her answers thus far. I congratulate her on her elevation to her new role, and I wish her well in it. I wonder, would the Minister be in a position to provide me with an update on plans for a new ASD unit at St Bridget's College in my constituency, please?
Okay, and thank you, the member, for his question in relation to St Bridget's College. I understand that there was a meeting held today with EA and officials with regards to the pressures for autism provision in the area, and my feedback from EA was that it was positive. So I do acknowledge that there are pressures in the area with regards to how that progresses. I would need to get some further information in relation to that for the member.
I call Mark Durgan.
That was a very topical question, and let's just hope that what's positive in the EA's eyes is positive for the school as well, and for the many young people living with ASD who are hoping to transfer there. The problems with provision, I suppose, around SEN aren't exclusive to Foyle, however, and I wonder if the Minister, or what plans the Minister has to improve or make easier accessibility to such services across the north.
And thank the member for his question. And obviously, the issue of the number and the increasing number of children presenting with special educational needs has increased quite considerably over the last number of years, which then not only puts pressure on for assessment, but also in making sure that there's appropriate placements for them. I do understand that somewhere in the region of £9.5 million capital and £10 million resource has been allocated in order to try to address specific needs. There's 42 additional classrooms at 16 of the 39 special schools to accommodate in a region of 237 pupils. There's repurposing of the Cookstown youth provision and also the Fort William site in North Belfast is being used for hopefully for temporary accommodation for the next 2 or 3 years in order to be able to address the pressures for Harberton. The main pressures, I understand, are in Armagh, South Down, Belfast and Mid-Ulster. But EA, I understand, are working to try to address this and are obviously developing an area plan which will be particularly useful in how we move forward.
And that is the end of our period of questions to the Minister of Education. I ask members to take their ease for a few moments before the next item, which is an urgent oral question to the Minister of Justice.